think all change is hard at first, messy in the middle, but worth it in the end. And I think you have to work with people to change that internal habit, that internal dialogue, in order for them to raise their frequency or raise their state of being. And what we should really talk about is a framework that I believe I created. I didn't see anybody else doing it, called balanced thinking. So I became aware of, first of all, in 2004 or 5, I started going into volunteer organizations and finding people who I thought I could help. And I wanted to learn what was going on in people's minds or in people's unconscious strategies that they were unproductive for them. So I work with people with alcohol issues, with drug issues. I work with people who were depressed, anxious, and one thing always came to the fore. And I call it balanced thinking now. Every time that when somebody was like depressed or low mood, I would say, okay, if you have 100 thoughts in a day, how many are positive and how many are negative? And I've done this over the years with thousands of people, and always people go, what do you mean? And I say, well, if you've got 100 thoughts, how many of them are positives? So like, is it 50-50? And they go, oh no, I don't have any positive thoughts. So I was like, oh, wow. So that is part of an internal strategy that people do. So what I developed this framework around frequency and around the framework of Dr. David Hawkins, where he talks about frequencies. You go up love and joy and passion, or you can be in fear and guilt and things like that. And I believe that you've got to be above the line with it. And one of the ways in which you do that is building a habit every day of being kind to yourself and saying really good things. And I think all change is hard at first, messy in the middle, but worth it in the end. And I think you have to work with people to change that internal habit, that internal dialogue, in order for them to raise their frequency or raise their state of being. And if you can change somebody's state of being, you can then change the result.
I love what you just said there. Hard at first, messy in the middle, but worth it
Worth
in the
it.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, that's shining the light on awareness, becoming aware of, well, what is it that you're thinking? What is it that's going on? Where is your attention going? Where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're looking to acknowledge the wins, personally, professionally, financially, in any area, it has a huge impact because what you appreciate appreciates.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Tony Robbins says it about 80% psychology, 20% strategy and tactics. I actually think it's higher than that for business owners. I think once you can raise your state of being, I think everything else becomes easy. But unfortunately, business owners, entrepreneurs, so much is thrown at them every day of the week. And I say this on training courses that I do, will they deal with so much more than everybody else. Normal people go to a job and they have problems and all that sort of stuff, but a job of an entrepreneur is solving all the other problems of people in your business, as well as the problem of making more money and being successful and all that. And I think you have to be in a high frequency state every day to chance. And what happens in my experience is that people living in low frequency, they live in fear. What happens if this happens? What if that happens? What will so and so say about? I feel guilty about making money. I meet a lot of businesses, and you probably do, who don't tell people how successful they are in their world for fear of, like, oh, what will they say about me? And one of the things I love about what you've done over the years, if you put yourself out there, and people like you who put themselves out there, and it really doesn't, you learn, I guess, that it doesn't really matter what people say about you. You just know that you've got to be in that frame of mind. You've got to be in that mental state, that high frequency, high vibration, so that you can get through any of the problems. And it's amazing to me, Will, that when somebody's going on holiday, they'll do so much more that week before they go than any other time. And that just shows you how you raise your mental state for that. And everything becomes much easier. You get it done, you get it done, you get it done, then you go on holiday and chill out. How about if we could learn a way of getting into that mental state or mental framework every single morning? And you and I know that you can do that. It's just most people don't know how to do it.
Mm. So you mentioned, so if someone's listening to this right now and they are one of those people that's having, if they really reflect on the thoughts that they're having on a daily basis, and they are more negative than positive, what are some practical things that they can do to
Yeah.
start to change that?
Yeah, great question. What I have people do very often is have an A4 notepad and draw a line down the middle. And on the left-hand side, you're watching this, on the left-hand side, write down things that you are thinking. So an example, I don't want to fail. So you write, I don't want to fail, and you log these through each day. And then at the end of the day, you go down to it, and this is where the all change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and worth it in the end. You have to do the internal work. So you do what I call the flip on that. So, I don't want to fail. What's the opposite of fail? Well, succeed. So I want to succeed. So what I have people do is to write that on the opposite side and then repeat it in your head 5, 6, 7, 8 times, or as many times as you feel I want to succeed. And then you're actually training your brain. And I've talked about this on other podcasts, Will, where people say to me, how are you? And the worst you ever get from me is I'm good, because most people will say something like, oh, I'm not bad. You're actually training yourself to be bad. And I always say, like, I'm good, or I'm great, or I'm awesome, or I'm unstoppable, or sometimes I'm embarrassingly awesome. And people for the last 2 decades have thought, what a weirdo. But, but I remember I come from a mining village, and like people looking at me like, yeah, you on drugs or are you drinking or what? But like, you say, hey, how are you? I'm embarrassingly awesome. How are you? And it's like, it takes people back because it's not normal. But what I've done over the past 2 decades, and you've known me for some time now, and I always smile and I operate in a really happy environment in my head, because look, you spend a lot of time in your own head, so you better make it a good place to be. And a lot of people don't do that. And so, operating that way every day, just saying really good things to raise your frequency, to raise your state. Because even if it doesn't, if you say to yourself, I'm embarrassingly awesome, your physiology changes. You feel it. It's like, oh yeah, I am awesome actually.
Thank you for listening to North Star Conversations with Will Polston. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Share it with just one person that you think will benefit from it. My North Star is to empower people to transform excuses into results and live a life they love, and this show exists for that purpose, and you can help make that a reality too. By liking, rating, reviewing and sharing the show, you will help the platform algorithms do their thing and get North Star Conversations in front of more people so they can benefit from it too. Make sure you hit subscribe so you get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Until next time, live a life you love.